I am Autumn, 38, and literally last weekend my role as the family peacemaker? Yeah. It totally backfired. The fragile harmony I'd worked my butt off to keep solid? It blew up into a full-on family meltdown at my daughter Ellie's 7th birthday party. My sister, Claire, the golden child, deliberately humiliated Ellie with a cruel gift, and when I called her out, the room went dead silent. "You're always so dramatic, Autumn," Claire snapped, with my parents nodding like puppets. But here's the tea. Her cruelty didn't break me, it lit a spark. I'm not just pushing back, I'm about to flip the script and change everything. A quick note. This story is copyrighted by the YouTube channel Brim Revenge. Reposting, revoicing, or editing this content without permission constitutes copyright infringement. Thank you for respecting original creative work. Now back to the story. I stood in the backyard, fairy lights twinkling above the picnic tables, watching Ellie twirl in her pink dress, her laughter like music. She was the light of my life, and this party was supposed to be her moment. I'd spent weeks planning. Cupcakes with glittery frosting, a bounce house, the works. My husband Tom squeezed my hand, sensing my nerves. "It'll be fine," he whispered. But I knew better. My family was coming, Mom, Dad, Claire, and they always brought a storm. I adjusted the balloons, my fingers trembling, trying to shake the dread. I'd always been the odd one out, the one who overthought things while Claire basked in their praise. Growing up, I'd swallow their slights, keep the peace, but now, it was about Ellie. As guests arrived, I plastered on a smile, hugging aunts and uncles, cousins I barely saw. Claire strutted in, her designer purse swinging, Mom and Dad trailing her like loyal fans. "Autumn, you outdid yourself," Claire said, her tone dripping with that fake sweetness I knew too well. I nodded, biting my tongue, my eyes on Ellie, who was showing her friends her new dollhouse. I caught Mom's glance, disapproving, as always, like I'd failed some unspoken test. My stomach knotted, but I kept moving, refilling juice cups, forcing laughter. Then came the gift opening. Ellie tore into presents, her eyes sparkling, until Claire's turn. She handed Ellie a box, smirking. "Open it, kiddo," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. My heart sank. Something was wrong. Ellie lifted the lid, and her face fell. Inside was a tattered, stained stuffed animal, a cruel jab at her favorite toy. Gasps rippled through the crowd. My blood boiled. I froze, watching Ellie's small hands clutch the tattered stuffed animal, her eyes welling up as whispers spread among the guests. Claire's smirk lingered, and I felt that familiar sting of being erased, just like when we were kids. Growing up, I was the shadow to Claire's spotlight. I'd bring home a painting from art class, proud of the colors I'd blended, only for Mom to shrug, "That's nice, Autumn," while Claire's mediocre report card got framed. I remember at 16 I won a regional writing contest, my words printed in a real magazine. I rushed home, heart pounding, to show Dad. He skimmed it, nodded, then turned to Claire's latest cheerleading trophy, gushing, "This is what real talent looks like." My chest tightened, but I smiled, always swallowing the hurt. There was the time I stayed up all night perfecting a speech for school, practicing until my voice cracked. I placed first, even got a standing ovation. But at dinner, Claire's new haircut stole the conversation. Mom said it made her look like a model. My award sat untouched on the counter, collecting dust. Another memory, my high school graduation. I was salutatorian, had worked myself raw for it. I scanned the crowd for my family, hoping for a proud glance. They were late, stuck at Claire's dance recital. When they finally showed, Dad muttered, "Good job, I guess," while Mom fussed over Claire's costume snag. I learned early my achievements didn't count, not like Claire's. I stood there now at Ellie's party, the old wounds reopening. My fingers curled into fists, nails biting my palms. Ellie's lip quivered as she looked at me, confused, and I wanted to shield her from this legacy of neglect. Claire's smug, "It's just a joke, lighten up," echoed Mom's old dismissals. I glanced at Tom, his jaw tight, his eyes urging me to stay calm. But the memories flooded back, every ignored milestone, every time I was told to stop being sensitive. I'd built my life around proving them wrong, but I'd kept it quiet, hidden, not anymore. Ellie deserved better than their cruelty, and so did I. The backyard felt smaller, the fairy lights dimmer, as I realized this wasn't just about a cruel gift. It was about a lifetime of being invisible, and I was done letting it slide. Ellie's hurt eyes locked onto mine, and I felt a fire ignite inside me. one that had been smoldering for years. It took me back to that moment, 6 years ago, when I realized I couldn't keep living in my family's shadow. I was 32, sitting alone in our cramped apartment after another family dinner where Mom had praised Claire's promotion while ignoring my freelance writing gig, landing a national feature. I'd smiled, nodded, but inside, I was done. That night, I stared at my laptop, my fingers hovering over the keys, and something clicked. I wasn't just the scapegoat, I was the one who could rewrite the story. So I started a secret project, a blog, anonymous at first, pouring out my pain, my triumphs, my truth. It was my rebellion against their neglect. I wrote about the sting of being overlooked, the quiet victories no one saw, like teaching myself graphic design to land bigger clients or saving for Ellie's future while juggling bills. The blog grew, slowly, then exploded. Readers connected, shared their own stories of family wounds. I spent nights responding to comments, my heart racing as strangers called me brave. I hid it from my family, knowing they'd mock it as Autumn's little hobby. But it wasn't little. It became a platform, then a brand. I poured every ounce of my hurt into it, turning their dismissal into fuel. By last year, I'd built a community of thousands, even landed sponsorships, all while keeping it secret from Mom, Dad, and Claire. It was mine, untouchable. Now at Ellie's party, that strength surged back. I knelt beside her, brushing a tear from her cheek, whispering, "You're perfect, baby." Claire's laugh grated, but I saw my blog's logo on my phone screen, a reminder of what I'd built. My hands shook as I stood, the weight of years of silence pressing down. Tom's steady gaze anchored me. I wasn't just fighting for Ellie, I was fighting for the girl I'd been, the one they'd ignored. My secret wasn't just a blog, it was proof I was enough. And in that moment I knew I couldn't let Claire's cruelty slide. Not this time. The morning of Ellie's birthday party, I stood in our kitchen tying ribbons on goodie bags, my stomach churning with dread. The house smelled of vanilla from the cupcakes I'd baked at dawn, but my mind was on the storm coming. Mom, Dad, and Claire were due in hours. I glanced at Ellie, coloring at the table, humming softly, oblivious to the tension I carried. Tom walked in, his flannel shirt sleeves rolled up, and slid a coffee mug my way. "You're overthinking again," he said, his voice gentle but firm. I forced a smile, my fingers fumbling with a bow. He was right, but I couldn't shake the feeling this party would be a breaking point. I'd spent weeks planning, not just for Ellie but to prove I could host something flawless, something even my family couldn't criticize. The backyard was ready. Streamers, a bounce house, a playlist of Ellie's favorite songs. But my chest tightened as I pictured Claire's smirk, Mom's pursed lips, Dad's distracted nods. They'd find something to pick at, always did. I tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, catching my reflection in the window, tired eyes, but resolute. My blog, my secret empire, was thriving, with a major brand deal pending, one that could change everything. I hadn't told anyone, not even Tom, not yet. It felt too fragile, like admitting it might jinx it. I knelt beside Ellie, her crayons scattered, and kissed her forehead. "Ready for your big day, kiddo?" She grinned, gap-toothed, and my heart swelled. This was for her. I stood, smoothing my dress, and checked my phone. Emails from my blog's sponsors, glowing feedback. It steadied me. But as I heard car doors slam outside, my pulse spiked. Claire's laugh carried through the open window, sharp and familiar. I gripped the counter, knuckles white, bracing for the inevitable. They were here, and I was walking into the lion's den, praying I could keep the peace for Ellie's sake. The backyard buzzed with laughter, kids darting between tables, but the air shifted when Claire sauntered over, her heels clicking on the patio. I was refilling lemonade pitchers, my hands steady despite the knot in my gut. "Autumn, still playing Perfect Mom?" she said, loud enough for nearby cousins to glance up. Her smile was all teeth, her eyes scanning me like I was a puzzle she'd already solved. I forced a laugh, brushing it off, but her words stung, each one a jab at my effort to give Ellie a perfect day. Mom hovered nearby, adjusting her scarf, her silence louder than any critique. Dad, as usual, was glued to his phone, oblivious. I kept moving, handing out plates, but Claire shadowed me, her voice carrying, "Bet you spent a fortune on this, huh? Compensating much?" A few aunts exchanged looks, their murmurs like static. My cheeks burned, but I focused on Ellie, giggling in the bounce house. I wouldn't let Claire ruin this. Then came the gift opening, the moment I'd dreaded. Ellie sat cross-legged, tearing into bright wrapping paper, her joy infectious. Until Claire's turn, she handed Ellie a box, her smirk sharp enough to cut glass. "Something special," she said, winking at Mom. My stomach dropped. Ellie opened it, her smile fading. The stuffed animal inside, ratty, stained, was a cruel mimicry of her beloved bunny. Gasps rippled. A cousin whispered, "That's mean." Ellie's eyes met mine, confused, hurt. Claire laughed. "Oh, come on, it's funny." My hands clenched, nails digging into my palms. Tom stepped closer, his arm brushing mine, a silent anchor. I wanted to scream, to throw the box at Claire, but the weight of every guest's stare held me still. My family's contempt wasn't new, but targeting Ellie, that was a line crossed. I swallowed hard, my voice low as I whispered to Ellie, "You're okay, sweetheart." But inside, I was unraveling, the years of their barbs crashing down. This wasn't just a party anymore. It was a battlefield. Ellie clutched my hand, her small fingers trembling as she stared at the tattered stuffed animal in the box. The backyard fell quiet, the hum of the bounce house the only sound as guests shifted uncomfortably. Claire leaned back in her chair, smirking, while Mom cleared her throat, saying, "Autumn, don't make a scene." My heart pounded, each beat a hammer against my ribs. A scene? They just humiliated my daughter, and I was the problem? Dad finally looked up from his phone, frowning. "Let's move on," he said, waving a hand like Ellie's tears were an inconvenience. Then Claire leaned forward, her voice sharp. "You're too soft, Autumn. Ellie needs to toughen up." That was it. The words sliced through me and I saw red. I stood, my chair scraping the patio, and faced them. "You think this is a joke?" My voice shook, but I didn't care. "You gave my 7-year-old a cruel prank and I'm the one overreacting?" Claire rolled her eyes, but Mom's face hardened. "You've always been too sensitive," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You're embarrassing us." Dad nodded, adding, "You're making Ellie weak by coddling her." The words landed like punches, each one echoing years of blame. Every time I was too much, too emotional, too wrong. Cousins and aunts stared, some looking away, others whispering. I felt exposed, raw, their judgment a weight I'd carried forever. I glanced at Ellie, her eyes wide, lip quivering. My family had just publicly shamed us both, cementing me as the scapegoat yet again. My throat tightened, but I knelt beside her, brushing her hair back. "You're perfect," I whispered, my voice cracking. Tom's hand rested on my shoulder, steady, silent. The guests' murmurs grew, but I felt the shift. This wasn't just about the gift. It was a verdict. I was the problem, always had been. But as I looked at Ellie, I knew I couldn't let them define us anymore. I knelt beside Ellie, her small hand gripping mine, her eyes searching my face for answers I wasn't sure I had. The backyard was a blur of awkward glances and hushed whispers, the fairy lights casting shadows that felt heavier than they should. Claire's smirk lingered, Mom and Dad's disapproval a familiar weight, but something in me shifted. I couldn't let this moment swallow Ellie whole. Then Tom crouched beside us, his voice low, steady. "You don't have to take this, Autumn," he said, his hand warm on my back. "You're stronger than they know." His words were quiet, meant only for me, but they hit like a lifeline. My throat tightened. Not from hurt, but from a spark of courage I hadn't felt in years. I stood, still holding Ellie's hand, and faced the crowd. My heart raced, but Tom's presence grounded me, his calm eyes urging me forward. "You okay?" he whispered, brushing his thumb across my knuckles. I nodded, barely, my resolve hardening. He didn't need to say more, his quiet support was enough, a reminder that I wasn't alone. I thought of my blog, the thousands of people who'd read my words, who'd called me brave. I'd built something real, something mine, despite my family's dismissal. Now they'd targeted Ellie, and Tom's steady gaze told me what I already knew. I had to fight back, not just for me, but for her. I took a shaky breath, my fingers tightening around Ellie's. "We're not doing this," I said, loud enough for the guests to hear, my voice steadier than I felt. Claire raised an eyebrow, but I didn't flinch. Tom stood beside me, his shoulder brushing mine, a silent promise. In that moment I felt the weight of years of silence lifting. I wasn't just the scapegoat anymore. I was a mother, a wife, a woman who'd built something unstoppable, and I was ready to make them see it. The backyard was still, the tension thick as I stood, Ellie's hand in mine, Tom's steady presence at my side, my family's faces, Claire's smirk, Mom's scowl, Dad's indifferent frown, felt like a jury I'd faced my whole life. But this time I wasn't shrinking. I took a step forward, my voice low but clear, cutting through the murmurs. "You've spent years tearing me down," I said, locking eyes with Claire. "But targeting my daughter? That's where it ends." Gasps rippled through the guests. Claire's smirk faltered, her fingers tightening around her glass. Mom opened her mouth, but I didn't stop. "You ignored me, belittled me, made me the scapegoat for every family flaw. I let it go to keep the peace. Not anymore." I turned to the relatives, cousins, aunts, uncles, whose eyes widened, some nodding faintly. "You've all seen it," I continued, my voice steady now. "The way they celebrate Claire while dismissing me, the way they blame me for everything, even as kids. I built a life despite it. A career, a family, a voice. I thought of my blog, my secret triumph, and my chest swelled. I'm done letting you rewrite my story." Claire scoffed, but it was weak, her confidence cracking. Mom's face reddened and she hissed, "You're ungrateful." Dad muttered, "Always so dramatic." But their words didn't land like they used to. The guests' whispers grew louder, some leaning toward each other, others staring at my parents with new scrutiny. I knelt, kissed Ellie's forehead, and stood tall. "We're leaving," I said, my voice firm. Tom's hand brushed mine, his nod subtle but proud. As we walked out, Ellie clutching her real bunny, the crowd parted, their silence heavy with respect, or shock. I didn't care which. For the first time I'd exposed their hypocrisy, and it felt like breaking chains. We left the party behind, the hum of shocked whispers fading as Tom, Ellie, and I stepped into the quiet of our car. Ellie curled against me in the back seat, her bunny clutched tight, her breathing soft but uneven. I stroked her hair, my heart still racing from the confrontation. Tom glanced at me through the rearview mirror, his eyes warm, steady. "You were incredible back there," he said, his voice low, like he was holding something sacred. I managed a small smile, my hands still trembling from the adrenaline. The weight of exposing my family's cruelty hadn't lifted, but in that car with my daughter and husband, I felt a flicker of something new. Safety. The kind that comes from chosen family. We didn't go home. Instead, Tom drove to his sister's house, where we'd been invited for a low-key dinner. When we arrived, his sister Mara opened the door, her face lighting up. "Ellie, my favorite artist," she said, kneeling to hug her. Ellie's eyes brightened, the party's sting fading as Mara handed her a sketchpad. The living room was warm, filled with soft music and the smell of roasted chicken. Mara's husband Greg ruffled Ellie's hair and their kids pulled her to play. I watched, my chest loosening. Here Ellie was seen, loved, not a target. Tom slipped his arm around me, his thumb brushing my shoulder. "This is what matters," he whispered. Over dinner, Mara asked about the party, her brow furrowing as I recounted Claire's gift and my family's cruelty. She reached across the table, squeezing my hand. "You're not alone," she said. And I felt it, the contrast between my family's toxicity and this simple, genuine love. It wasn't blood that made a family. It was this. The next morning, sunlight spilled through our kitchen window as I sipped coffee, the quiet a stark contrast to yesterday's chaos. Ellie was upstairs, humming as she played, while Tom read the paper, his foot nudging mine under the table. My phone buzzed relentlessly, texts from Mom, Claire, even a cousin or two, all variations of guilt trips and accusations. "You humiliated us," Mom wrote. "Call me," Claire demanded, no apology in sight. I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering, the old urge to smooth things over tugging at me. But then I saw Ellie's bunny on the counter, clean and loved, and my resolve hardened. I set the phone down, screen dark, and looked at Tom. "I'm done with them," I said, my voice steady. He nodded, his eyes soft but proud. "Good." I spent the day drafting boundaries, my fingers typing furiously on my laptop. No more family gatherings where Ellie or I could be targets. No more calls I didn't want to take. I blocked Claire's number, then Mom's, my heart pounding but light. A cousin texted, "I had no idea it was that bad." And I replied, "It's over now." I meant it. When Claire sent an email, half apology, half blame, I deleted it without reading past the first line. Tom watched me, his hand resting on my shoulder, and said, "You're building a fortress." I laughed, the sound surprising me. He was right, I was carving out space for us, free from their poison. By evening I sat with Ellie helping her draw. Her smile was back, brighter, and I knew I'd made the right call. My family's voices no longer had power here. This was our sanctuary, and I'd guard it fiercely. Ellie's crayons scratched across the paper, her laughter filling our living room as I sat beside her, my laptop open. The email from my blog's biggest sponsor glowed on the screen, a finalized deal, one that would let me expand my platform, maybe even start a podcast. I hadn't told my family about my success, and now I never would. They didn't get to claim any part of it. Instead, I thought of Ellie, her bright eyes focused on her drawing of a rainbow. I'd spent years swallowing their neglect to keep the peace, but no more. I was rewriting our legacy, not for them, but for her. I leaned over, kissing her forehead, and said, "That's beautiful, kiddo." She grinned, holding up her picture. "It's for you, Mommy." My heart swelled. This was what mattered, building a world where Ellie felt seen, valued, not diminished like I'd been. I opened my blog dashboard, my fingers hovering over a draft post about the party, about breaking free from my family's cycle of cruelty. I wrote about Claire's gift, Mom and Dad's silence, and my choice to walk away. The words poured out, raw but clear, and when I hit publish, comments flooded in. "You're so strong, I've been there." My community, strangers turned allies, reminded me I wasn't alone. Later I took Ellie to the park, watching her climb the slide, fearless. Tom joined us, his arm around my waist. "You're doing it," he said, nodding toward Ellie. "You're giving her what you never had." I nodded, tears pricking my eyes. My success, my voice, wasn't just mine, it was Ellie's shield, her proof that she could rise above anyone's cruelty. I'd reclaimed our name, not for my parents or Claire, but for us. I sat on our porch swing, the evening air cool, like Ellie's soft snores drifting from her bedroom window above. Tom handed me a mug of tea, his fingers brushing mine, and we settled into the quiet. I stared at the stars, my mind tracing the path from that awful party to now. Exposing my family's cruelty had been terrifying, but it freed something in me. I wasn't the scapegoat anymore, the one who absorbed their blame to keep the peace. I'd spent years chasing their approval, shrinking to fit their mold, but walking away, choosing Ellie, choosing myself, was like breathing for the first time. My blog, my voice, had grown into a beacon for others, and every comment, every shared story reminded me my worth wasn't tied to their validation. I thought of Ellie, asleep with her bunny, safe in a world I was building for her. My hands tightened around the mug, warm against my palms. I'd broken the cycle, not just for me, but for her, so she'd never know the sting of being unseen. Tom's arm rested across my shoulders, his silence a steady comfort. "You're at peace," he said, not a question but a truth. I nodded, my chest light. I didn't need my family's love anymore, I had my own. My worth was in Ellie's laughter, Tom's quiet strength, the community I'd built. I was enough. So, have you ever had to cut ties to protect your peace? I never thought I'd be the one to walk away, but standing up for Ellie, for myself, was worth it. Did I go too far or not far enough? Drop a comment below, I'd love to hear your stories, your moments of breaking free. This journey showed me family isn't just blood, it's the people who see you, lift you up. If you've got a story like mine, share it. Let's build a space where we all feel heard. And don't forget to subscribe for more, because we're just getting started. Here's to choosing ourselves, to building legacies that heal, not hurt. Keep shining.